The 6 to 7 Figure Show, Episode 10. Ready? Let's hit it.
Broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun outside Phoenix, Arizona. This is the 6 to 7 Figure Show. Tired of working so hard and having no time? Take your six-figure practice and turn it to a thriving seven-figure enterprise. And now, your host, author, speaker, mentor, and strategist, Frank Bria.
This is the 6 to 7 Figure Show, and I'm your host, Frank Bria. Today, we have a very special episode. Usually, we have a hot seat conversation, and this week, we're talking about building your authority. But today, I want to give you a very special interview that we have with Michael Port. He has just released a book called Steal the Show, which is about public speaking, but actually, it's more than that. It's about showing up and being the best performer in all the roles of your life. And as you build authority, this is a very important skill to have. And so this interview fits very closely with the content of building your authority. So we determined this would be the best way for you to take that lesson to the next stage. And so we're really fortunate to be joined here today by Michael Port. But before we get to that, just a reminder, join us in our Facebook group, Scale to Success Facebook. There used to be the Seven Figures Plus Facebook group. We've changed the name. It is the Scale to Success Facebook group, but it's the same great stuff. You want to talk about Steal the Show? You want to talk about Michael Port? You want to talk about building authority? The conversation's happening there on Facebook. So the place to go is if you go to frankbria.com and you go ahead and click on step 2, you'll get yourself that invitation to that free Facebook group. Or you can go straight to frankbria.com/join-S2S. Join-S2S. S2, the number 2, S. So, but come to frankbria.com right in the front page there and just click on the link and it'll get you straight to that Facebook group. All right. Without further ado, we are going to get to our interview with Michael Port. Michael, thanks so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here.
You've got a lot of exciting stuff going on with the upcoming book that's just coming out. Tell us about it a little bit.
Steal the Show. I started my career as an actor, and most people know me as an author. I've written 5 best-selling books and have been on the New York Times list and all those other good things. And the books I wrote were about business. Book Yourself Solid is a popular book. I've written 3 versions of that book: Beyond Book Solid, The Contrarian Effect, and, of course, the Think Big Manifesto. And I run a licensing program. I certify coaches. I have a Book Yourself Solid mentoring program. And I've been teaching marketing and sales skills for 13 years. But I started as an actor. That was my first career. I have a master's of fine arts from the graduate acting program at NYU. And I was a professional actor. I was in shows like Sex and the City, Third Watch, All My Children, Law and Order, 100 Center Street, Down to Earth, The Pelican Brief. Those are films. The Believer. I did lots of commercials, hundreds of voiceovers for companies like Coors, Braun, Pizza Hut, AT&T. That's how I made my bread and butter, so to speak, in between other on-camera film and TV and theater jobs. Uh-huh. And so that's where I came from. And when I looked back on one of the things, and the things that made me most successful as an entrepreneur, as a coach, as a consultant, and as an advisor, I realized it was my background in performing. And certainly I used speaking to create awareness for the products and services that I offered. And at the beginning, I just started using speaking for free just to get in front of potential clients, and then developed into a professional speaker on the circuit. But it's more than just standing on a stage speaking. It's performing in all aspects of life, because we play roles all the time. So I play one role when I'm here on this podcast. I play another role when I am playing with my kids. I play another role when I'm in a conversation with my grandmother, who's 102 years old. I play another role when I'm with my buddies that I grew up with from high school. I play another role when I'm chatting with the neighbors up the street. So we play roles all the time, hopefully authentic ones. They are all versions of you. Great actors don't pretend to be something that they're not. And this is the myth. This is the thing that people don't understand about performers. They think performers are pretending. But when you watch the greatest performers in the world, Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, what you see them experience, what you see them feel is real. They are feeling those emotions for real. They are just letting you in on it. And most people aren't willing to do that.
Right.
So the greatest performers in the world are the most authentic performers in the world, and often the most authentic people too. So if you are willing to show up fully self-expressed and amplify different parts of your personality for different situations and put some parts of your personality away for certain situations, then you can play lots of different roles. You can move in and out of groups very easily. For example, one of the things that people often have a hard time with is meeting new people, especially if those people are ahead of them in business.
Right.
You know, if they feel like, oh my God, they're a higher status than me. I don't know. I'm going to be nervous. What should I do? What should I say to them? Well, this is because you think of yourself as a supporting character. You think of yourself as the person who runs on and has one line, as opposed to somebody that could just as easily be cast in the leading role. And so when I meet somebody who is ahead of me in the book of business, I don't think of them as somehow special. I don't think of them as different. I just see, oh, they've been doing this longer, or they have been a little bit more clever about how they've gotten there, or a little bit luckier, or a whole host of different things. I don't really obsess on it. I just see them as people. I see them as people. So I play a role that is on par with the role they play. And I did that right from the beginning, which is one of the things that allowed me to progress quickly. I didn't see myself as a subordinate. I didn't see them as superior. And it was just playing a different role, seeing the world differently from different perspectives and allowing myself to roll into those perspectives easily.
I think a lot of people have trouble with that.
I think they do too. That's why I wrote Steal the Show, because I want people to feel more comfortable with that. The more styles of behavior you can adopt, the faster you'll progress. And look, here's the thing. Some of the most successful people in the world are chameleons. Now, here's the thing. People often get a little provoked by that idea because they think, well, a chameleon is inauthentic. A chameleon changes their colors. Well, not really. And let's take an actual chameleon for a second. When an actual chameleon, you know, the little lizard thing, is on a green leaf, it turns green. It's not pretending to turn green. It actually turns green.
Yep.
When it's on a red leaf, it turns red. It's not pretending to turn red. It's actually turning red. So if I am allowing a particular part of my personality to come out more when I'm hanging out with the guys down at the docks, and then allow a different part of my personality to come out when I'm sitting at a board meeting for one of the nonprofits that I serve, well, does that mean I'm being inauthentic? Of course not. I just know that I play a different role in those different situations, and I should show some colors in one situation and other colors in the other situation. That is completely authentic. It doesn't mean you sacrifice your values. Your values are your values. They should stay with you throughout, you know, your life and all the different situations you play. But you can still show some of your colors in some situations and other colors in other situations.
And I think a lot of people confuse authenticity with sameness across all of these different roles that you're talking about, where they say, well, I've got to be this person in a place where it doesn't feel comfortable anymore, like you're describing. If I'm going to be authentically, an entrepreneur, then I have difficulty, being a father or being able to hang out like you're describing.
Yeah.
Where
look, if the Army general treats his family the same exact way he treats his soldiers, I don't know. There may be some therapists who, are doing very well just treating those kids when they grow up. So not every role that we play is appropriate for every other situation. And I think that the audience is getting that. I think they're like, yeah, I'm with that. That makes sense. Because the buzzword has been authenticity for the last couple of years, but I think that it has been taken to such a degree that we think we're supposed to always be the same in every situation, that we're supposed to say whatever we want to say, regardless of the consequences, that we're supposed to be so true to ourselves that we end up being rigid and not invited to as many parties as we would like, because people, they're always going to say this thing about the taxes, or they're always going to say whatever it is. And so I think that it's okay to be a little more chameleon-like and be comfortable with it, so you can be in the moment and allow yourself to be improvisational.
Well, and I think that also goes to the issue of being authentic at the expense of the others around you, because there's an element of this too that says, hey, you need to adapt to the situation, to the audience. Then there's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of people feel like, well, no, if I'm being me, then I should be able to come in like a bull in a china shop. And there are probably perfectly good reasons to do that, but there are probably also really good times where the bull is not invited into the china shop.
All the time. Absolutely.
Right.
So, this is one of those things that people go, well, how do I do it? How do I do it? Well, let's use acting as a model here, not a metaphor, because it's the skills that I learned, the craft that I developed as an actor has been very, very helpful in all these different situations. So when you are trying to develop a character, you are developing this character to play a particular role. So you need to identify first, what's the role that my character is responsible for playing in this situation? So if you are part of a team and your role is a supporting one on this team, and you try to play the leading role all the time, then you are going to cause conflict.
Right.
If your role is if you're to play the leading role and you try to play the supporting role all the time, then you are probably not going to do a great job leading the team. So first thing we do is identify the role. So what characteristics does this role require? What type of behaviors does this role require? Well, if you want to speak publicly, if you want to go on stage, well, what's my role when I do that? My role is to be in charge of that room. If I let other people take over that room, I've lost them. Okay, I know that's one of the important character traits required to play this role well. You see, so we're looking at the role that is required. I know I got to come onto that stage and I've got to have a big idea. And I've got to make a promise to that audience. And I've got to deliver on that promise. This is the role that I'm playing. Now, if I am not willing to make a promise, if I'm not willing to do everything in my power to deliver on that promise, then I'm not playing that role well. And then I don't steal the show. But if I do make that commitment, then I can steal the show.
And what you're saying is it's bigger than just when you're on stage. This is true whether you're in a conference room, whether you're with a team meeting with your company, whether you're at home. These roles, and being true to that role has to be consistent through everything.
Yeah, but yes, and what I'm saying is that these roles can be different. We stay consistent to it once we've identified what it is. Even a first date is a performance. Hopefully it's an authentic performance, because if it's not, you're probably not going to get a second one.
Right.
Chris Rock says that, and I love this, he says that you don't show up on your first date. Your representative shows up for the first date, which is kind of true, actually. So the thing about playing roles is we never want to pretend we are something other than we are. Sure. That's essential, because then we are faking it. Then we are pretending. But people will let you play lots of different roles. Here's an example. When I gave a speech last night, and when I'm meeting people there, they treat me with a high status. because I'm the speaker and they know some of my accomplishments. So I get this real gift of being treated with high status. And so I know what my role is in that environment. My role is to be supportive, to listen, to make other people feel good, and not to talk about myself very much. If I'm on stage and I'm telling a story that is about my life that helps them, that's different.
Yeah.
But I know what my role is. And if I go in there meekly and I don't hold court when they want me to hold court, then I'm not playing the role that they want me to play.
Right.
And it negatively impacts their experience. And of course, negatively impacts my future relationship with them.
Right.
So I go in there playing that role, knowing what is required of me in that situation. But if I go into a board meeting, I don't go in there knowing that I'm supposed to hold court. I know that the board meeting is not driven by me. I'm not the chairman of the board.
Right.
I know what my role is in that situation, and I will play that part.
So I've heard you describe Book Yourself Solid as a love story disguised as a business book. It sounds like Steal the Show is a manifesto for true authenticity disguised as a guide to public speaking.
You know what? I think I'm going to have to use that. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm telling you, trust me when I tell you that the greatest performers in the world are the most authentic performers in the world. They are not con men, and they will always be of service to you. And the question is, how far are you willing to go? That's really the question. You know, that's what great performers do. They are willing to go all the way.
Right.
You know, one of the reasons you love watching your favorite actors is because they make full commitments. They take big risks. They choose early and they choose often. They don't make weak choices. They don't perseverate. They make risky choices. And that's exciting to watch. And that's why I have been fortunate to be successful, because I make choices. And as soon as I make the choice, I put it into action. And, you know, the thing that I've seen get, you know, so many coaches and consultants in trouble is not making choices, not moving quickly, you know, thinking forever about their business model, being scared of making the choice. What if this happens? What if that happens? And that's a tough way to work as an entrepreneur. You know, for example, I was working with some of my graduate students in my heroic public speaking training program, and one of them asked me a question about demo reels for speakers. And I said, yeah, you got to have a great demo reel. And she said, well, yeah, but Michael, there's a catch-22. She said, I really want to have a great demo reel, but in order to have a great demo reel, you have to get booked, you know, for good gigs with people in the audience on a big stage. But if you don't have a demo reel, you can't get booked for those gigs. I was like, oh, good point. So, you know what? I said, maybe I should bring my filmmakers, because they're the best filmmakers in the business, to you. You know, I'll rent a huge theater and we'll create trailers of your speeches, you know, with the best filmmakers in the business. They'll be brilliant. And then you'll get booked all the time. And the whole class went, yes, please, please, please. Like, done. A week later, the whole thing is done, organized, booked, ready to go. Because when you get an idea and you get any positive feedback on it, you know, try it, play it, go for it.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's making choices. That's taking risks.
And I think that people who have seen your work have seen you play that role of being in service to those who you are serving. I mean, I know it sounds like that should be obvious, but it isn't really for a lot of people. That, you know, I whether as a speaker or a coach or a mentor, I'm in service to somebody, but that truly does mean that that's your role, that you should be thinking about what's in service. And what I hear you describing is sort of going all in on that role.
Absolutely. Like another example from my grad program in heroic public speaking, and the reason I'm thinking about it is because I was just with them in LA for the last week, I asked them at one point, I said, do I make you guys nervous? And everyone went, yes. And I said, good, because a great teacher should make you a little bit nervous. Now, why? I mean, I don't have an effect on their future. I'm not telling them whether or not they're going to be successful. That's not my job. Right. But because I'm their teacher, they want to do a good job. I suppose they want to get my approval because they respect my opinion and they want to work hard, to achieve, what I expect of them. And so I know that that's part of my role. And so I will play that character for them. And I will make sure that I don't do things that make them feel like I'm just like an average Joe who, really doesn't have that high an expectation for them. It's not me, so I couldn't. But I know that that's my role. And my role is not to be their best buddy. My role is to be their coach. So Herb Brooks is a great example of this. He was the coach of the 1980 Olympic hockey team, the team that beat the Russians. Right. The Russians were the professionals, best team in the world. And these were a bunch of college kids who all came from different schools and had to gel together as a team. Now, they were not expected to even make the playoffs, let alone win. And Herb Brooks was a great coach, and he was known for being close with his players, friendly with his players, a good buddy to his players. But when he put this hockey team together, he was not their friend. He even told them, I'm not your friend. You need a friend, go to somebody else. And his plan was to make them hate him so much that they would bond together because they were rivals before they got on this team. They hated each other. They fought with each other because they all came from different colleges.
Sure. And
so they'd been fighting with each other for the last 4 years at these different colleges, on the ice, of course. And so that's exactly what happened. He knew that if he played a different role, he could bring this team together. And so he stuck with that role. He played that role. So as a coach, as a teacher, you got to decide what's your role. What role are you going to play? Which means, for example, in my situation, I have to say things that are often very uncomfortable to people.
Sure, absolutely.
And I've got to be comfortable saying those things, even though I don't want to say them. I know that's my role. It's my job. It's much easier often to not say them. Mm-hmm. But I know I have to. That's my job. That's playing a role. That's performance.
And the role issue that shows up, the role mismatch that shows up, I think, in a lot of people's lives, and you brought up a really great example when a speaker lets the room sort of take control, right? They're not doing the room any service by letting either external environmental issues take over or maybe one attendee take over. I think they are doing a huge disservice not showing up in that role. But what are some other things? Like, what are some other bad things have you seen speakers do where they're abdicating their role?
Sure.
And how does it show up in what they do in their public speaking profession? So
let's get nitty gritty. Let's give some real good tips on public speaking specifically. And I'll go through a few, and not just on abdicating your role, but some things that you see speakers typically do that are not effective, and what they should do instead. Because even though Steal the Show is not just a book about public speaking, it's about performing in all the spotlight moments of your life, in any high-stakes situation. It is, in my opinion, the best book you can read on public speaking because you learn how to speak from the inside out, not from the outside in. You learn the actor's techniques to performing as a speaker rather than just going up there and talking the way most do. Yeah. Because great public speaking is much more than about sharing information. So here's some of the things you see speakers do. Speakers will often follow the old adage, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them.
Right.
And it makes sense. It's not a terrible thing, but it's not something that you always have to do. In fact, some of the greatest speeches in the world are speeches that take you on a journey and you don't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. if you went to the movies and somebody was on the screen at the beginning and said, hello, audience, here's what's going to happen in the movie. You're going to see a few people come out. They really love each other. But then there's a fight, so one shoots the other. That person almost dies. You're not sure if they're going to die. They almost die, but then they don't die. And that, you're like, I'm not going to watch the movie. It's why I don't watch trailers to movies, previews, because then I figured out already what happens in the movie. It's a 5-minute, trailer. It is completely ruins the movie. So you don't always need to do that when you give a speech. Sometimes just taking them on a journey that they don't, where they can't anticipate what's coming, but they love the journey, is a much more powerful speech. Mm-hmm. When you open a speech, you need not say, I'm happy to be here. It's just filler. Because what's the alternative? That you're really pissed that you're there? If every speaker comes out and says, I'm happy to be here, you're like, great, thanks so much. Can we get on with the speech, please? Right. Of course you're happy to be there. I mean, unless you're really not, then I don't know what you're doing there. But instead, just show them that you're happy to be there. Mm-hmm. Some public speaking coaches will tell you to slow down, which on the surface makes sense, because if someone's talking really fast, at some point you have trouble keeping up. Sure. But slowing down is not necessarily always the right advice. Pausing is often the better advice. Because people speak quickly. And some cultures speak quicker than others. Mm-hmm. Now, you speak a lot faster if you're from New York than you do if you're from Texas, generally. Yeah. But you can understand people when they speak very quickly. But if they are sharing information that you have to process, that's where the pauses come in. So you can understand me right now, and I'm speaking very quickly. But I'm allowing some space. Now, when you're doing on-air interviews like this, you don't offer as much space because then it sounds like dead air. Dead air is different. So each medium calls for a different delivery protocol. And then, of course, if you want to be a speaker of any kind, you learn those protocols. What's the difference between speaking on a podcast versus speaking or presenting yourself in a video interview versus being on a stage that's huge versus being in a small conference room presenting? There are different skills required for all of those different situations. Another thing that we should avoid saying at the beginning of a speech is, okay, let's get started. for two reasons. One, it's unnecessary filler. Well, three reasons. Two, it's just weak. And three, it's already started. It started when they read your bio, which is why the bio is very important. So let's say your bio's not read. As soon as you walk on stage, the way you walk on stage, the way you look at them, whatever you say to them, it's already started off, and there's a whole bunch of filler like, oh, my God, I just flew in. My arms are really tired. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. Oh, so, hey, I like your blouse. Whatever it is. Then they say, now let's get started. Another thing we should avoid doing is saying, if you take anything away from this talk, take away this. And then you tell them that one thing. Because it suggests that you should have just come out and said that one thing and then saved everybody, the 58 other minutes that you spoke, so they could go do something else, like have a drink and relax. So everything you're saying should be that important, and the audience will decide what they should take away, what's most important to them. We don't need to hit them over the head with that. Another thing that is important to consider is that you can speak and move at the same time. Sometimes speaking coaches will say you should never move and speak at the same time. I've heard this often from students that they've been told that, which of course doesn't make sense because in real life we can move and speak at the same time, can't we? Right. So we want to seem as naturalistic as possible on the stage. The difference is that we don't want to move on incredibly important points. We don't move on punchlines. We don't move on big statements, big worldview statements, because then it tends to weaken the statement. But we may be transitioning from one idea to the next, and that's what makes us move. So the transitions are what makes us move. So all of the pacing you see back and forth, we've got to get rid of that. The looking down before you move, we've got to get rid of that. People don't realize they do this, but if they watch themselves or if they watch other speakers, they'll see often when they move, they look at the floor. Oh, I'm going to go over there. Just trying to make sure they don't fall off the stage or something. I don't know. But meanwhile, there's no stage to fall off of when they're in a hotel room, but they look at the floor as if they're going to fall off the floor. And often it's just, I need to remember what I'm going to say next. I feel like I'm going to lose it if I look at the audience. So let me look down at the floor. But what happens is you disconnect from the audience. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to do that. So it's very, very important to work on staying connected to the audience at all times. Like if you see me speak, I don't look at the floor unless it's a choice, unless there's a reason I'm doing it. But I look at the audience, and even if I don't remember what I was going to say next, I stay looking at the audience, I stay connected to them, and then the next thought comes. And that's very, very important concept in more advanced presentation. So avoid wandering, avoid moving just to move, avoid just getting rid of your restless energy just by wandering around. Movement is so essential. If you see me speak, you will see what I'm saying lives in my body. It lives in my body. People will often say, I've never seen anybody move the way you move on stage. I feel like I'm following you with my body when you're moving on stage. And that's exactly what I want. I want that physical connection, not just an intellectual connection.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard you talk about that I've around this issue that I've learned a ton about is when I'm on stage, every single thing that I'm doing and saying needs to be meaningful. So every little tick, every movement of my hands, movement of my body, they need to mean something. It can't just be filler. Just like the verbal tics you talked about at the beginning, I can't be shuffling around or wandering or pacing because it even if it seems meaningless to me, it becomes meaningful to the audience in a way that I don't intend it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they feel like you're wasting their time.
Right. Or am completely not confident in what I have to say, or
if you're not, and if it doesn't seem like you're confident in what you're saying, then they might not believe you. And here's the thing: when you are giving a speech, if you're giving a really powerful speech or attempting to, you're asking the audience to change the way they see the world. I'm asking your listeners to change the way they see the world. I'm asking your listeners to see themselves as performers.
Right.
I'm asking your listeners to stop speaking and start performing. I'm asking them to rehearse. I'm asking them to dig deeper. I'm asking them to play lots of different roles, to amplify different parts of their personalities. I'm asking a lot, and it may be confronting. And if you are not fully committed or don't seem to be fully committed, or that you don't absolutely believe deep in your soul what you're saying is necessary, then why should they? Why should they adopt this worldview? Why should they change? Why should they think what you're asking them to think, feel what you're asking them to feel, or do what you're asking them to do? Because people say yes when we've affected them intellectually, emotionally, or physically. Now, it's important also to unpack your content. You know, if you say I'm going to teach you these three things, and you teach them two, well, then they feel like they got ripped off.
Right.
And if you talk about a whole bunch of things that are really important, but you don't go into detail on them and say, oh, but you can get the rest in my book or at the CD at the back of the room, well, then you're kind of jipping them off because, you know, like you said that you're going to talk about these things or these were important, but you didn't unpack them. So if you say you're going to unpack something, you need to unpack it. Every once in a while you might forget. That's okay. These things happen. But but make sure you work hard to unpack everything you say you're going to.
Well, and along those lines, this is the trickiest thing, I think, for speakers, because a lot of speakers, especially early on in their career, are making a living essentially selling from the stage. They're speaking for free. They're in front of their target audience. This is the right place for them to be. But they struggle with the ability to deliver value and then turn around and still, with confidence and without, alienating the audience, let people know that they are available to be of service to them in some other way, essentially to sell what they have available. Mm-hmm. So how does a speaker walk that line with the appropriate authenticity? In other words, how do you sell from the stage the Michael Port way?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a couple different things to consider. First of all, I'll just preface this by saying I have never been a pitch from the stage kind of guy, and I
right.
don't resonate with it. I actually don't really know the detailed technique that's taught to design your whole program around pitching from the stage. Mm-hmm. I obviously know a lot about sales, but I'm not really interested in designing content so that it is leading people to run to the back of the room and jump on tables. I'm focused on serving them in that moment, not later on.
Right.
Now, if you serve them so well in that moment, they are compelled to work with you later on. So obviously, I imagine your audience knows I've been quite successful in this line of work, and I've never had to be a hardcore sell from the stage type. In fact, I often forget to mention my website. I forget to say, hey, go get my newsletter, because I'm just so focused on them. I forget these things. Sure. And yet still people come up to me and say, how can I work with you? Is there something that I could do? Is there, do you want to, and I've done licensing deals with companies just after giving a speech. People come and say, hey, can I sign up for these programs or et cetera, after giving speeches without saying one word about them coming and signing up. So that happens if you're best in class. So that's first of all. That's why I think that the work is most important first. You do the work to become a better speaker before you go to seminars to teach you how to sell better from the stage. And I'm sorry, anybody who teaches selling from the stage wants to argue with me about the importance of your actual ability to speak, please bring it.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather be best in class first and then learn how to sell from the stage, and so I can do it in a way that is in integrity and feels comfortable and do well because I'm best in class, rather than not really being a very good speaker, but just killing them with sales technique. I mean, I saw a video recently of a guy, Matthew, my business partner, sent it over to me and he said, you got to see this guy. And this guy made a lot of money, I think. I mean, it seems like it, because people were running to the back of the room.
Right.
But the first 15 minutes of his presentation, all he did was, can I curse for a second? Do you mind? If you guys don't like a curse, please cover your ears. But basically the first 10, 15 minutes of his speech was a fuck you to the audience. It was, you don't know anything. You are completely worthless in the way that you're behaving now. He made them feel so bad. That was his design. His design was to make them feel so much pain that they had to buy from him or they were going to be losers for the rest of their life. And unfortunately, it can work.
Sure.
So I'm just not a fan of that, and I'd like to raise the bar and move us away from that, style of presentation.
Well, I find it works in the short term. I mean, the thing that I think when people look at you, your career, and the things that you stand for, I think they're looking at long-term success because they see a commitment to the long-term service of your audience, and that is a very different thing. Which is, I think, why so many people have difficulty with selling from the stage, because all of the, I guess, conventional wisdom about it, I think, does conflict with people's desire to be authentically in service of their audience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm not close with a lot of people who do that kind of hardcore pitching. I certainly know a few people. One fella I know a little better than the others. The first time he did it, he sold $500,000 worth of product in a 30-minute speech. He was at an event that was specifically a pitch fest type event. So everybody was pretty worked up there. And he called me up. He's so excited. I sold $500,000. I said, congratulations. That's fantastic. And then I bumped into him 3 weeks later I said, so, you must be pretty proud. You sold $500,000. That's great. He said, yeah, about 60% of the buyers have asked for refunds already.
Right.
And he's like, well, I still made, about $500,000.
Right.
I said, that's great. But I said, do you think it was not a great product? He's like, no, I really believe in the product. I think it was great. But I just think that they were emotionally buying. They got excited about it. They got home and said, I really don't want this, or I can't do this, or, I don't want to spend the money. And they returned it. I just don't want to be in a relationship with people where they buy things they don't want to have and then return it. I want our returns as low as possible. So, so that's just my sort of philosophy on it. Take it or leave it. But if you do want to move people from their seats in that room to buying something, think about the following. Number one, you can have a separate session that is specifically a sales session. And that's what we tried this at our recent Heroic Public Speaking Live event, which is hundreds of people, and it's an incredible 3-day event. And, we said, well, we want to sell the graduate program, which is something that many people here will want to do. And we'll sell 20 spots because it's going to be a private exclusive program, and it's not a cheap program. But I don't want to, drop hints about it throughout the whole event. I'm here to teach. This is it. It's just teaching, all about the experience and the learning. So what we'll do is we'll have one session on the third day that we tell them is about the graduate program. If you want to come to learn about the graduate program, we're going to tell you about it. We're going to give you an opportunity to sign up for it. And if you're not interested in talking about next steps, then don't come. Go to the pool, because we do it in Florida. Mm-hmm. And then people who are interested come, and we told them about it. And 20 minutes later, all the spots were filled. We didn't really have to say too much, but because what we were delivering was so good, it was so needed that people right away knew that they wanted to go and take the next step. And this way, everybody was comfortable with it, because we said, you're going to come to this and we're going to sell you on the idea of joining the grad program. We're going to tell you about it. We're going to say, here are some forms. If you want to sign up, you can. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. So it's all opt-in. It's permission-based. Right. You don't have to try to organize your content around that. Now, you might say, well, what if I don't have the ability to do a separate session, which is often the case when you're speaking at somebody else's event? Great. Don't sell $25,000 programs. All sales offers must be proportionate to the amount of trust that you've earned. And if you go give a speech and people don't really know you very well yet, the first time they have interaction with you is there, you want to go a little more slowly. So one of my clients was putting on an event where he is a financial services company, and they invite 100 people, and they are all people who have at least $1 million in net worth, and they give them a half-day educational experience. But of course, he's doing this. He's spending a lot of money putting this thing on, $50,000 just to put the event on. He's doing this because he wants their business. And when he started his speech, he started it with, don't worry, there's nothing to buy here. You don't have to hold on to your wallet. I'm not going to be selling you anything. This is just an educational experience. Okay. Then when he got to the end of the speech, he's like, okay, so in your packet, there's an opportunity card. And I want you to take out the opportunity card, and I want you to fill it out. And if you fill it out, we'll have a conversation, and we'll talk about your next steps and blah, blah, blah. And so I said to him, wait a minute, I thought you said you weren't selling anything. He's like, well, I'm not. I'm just saying we should have a conversation about whether we should work together. I said, how is that not a sales offer? He's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So I said to him, look, people who come here, they know that you want to work with them. That's the point. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. They know you're a business owner. In fact, they may be happy for you to tell them we can work together, and here's how. So when you open it, you can say, look, there won't be any products or services to buy here. There's nothing in the back of the room. Of course I want your business. That's why I'm putting this on. That's why I've gone to all this trouble. That's why I tried to get you here, because I want your business. I want to be in service to you. So if you're interested at the end of this, session or half day, and you want to talk to us, we can set up a conference, a time to talk, and we'll talk about it. Simple. Great. Now let's get on with it. Boom. And they go. So it's all up on the table. It's right out in front.
Right.
So when he gets to the
love
end,
that.
he's like, okay, so now if you want to talk to us, we have my assistant is over here. You can schedule a time, and I'll be also over here, and you can ask me questions, and you go from there. And it's really simple. It's not a big deal.
Right. And it's authentic, and it treats the audience like adults. And I just love that whole concept of, the thing is, it flies in the face of so much conventional wisdom about, tricking people to stay to the end so they can hear the offer and all that stuff. And I've always been a fan of, if the content is good enough, you shouldn't have to play those games.
I would think so. Look, there are different audiences respond differently. Yeah. But I said to him, if you have an audience that has at least $1 million in net worth, they're not a bunch of idiots.
Right.
With all respect to all people of all kinds. But
right.
Some people are going to respond to really low, energy, negative type stuff. And if that's the audience you want, then go out and find them, and trick them. That's your choice. That's everybody lives according to their own value system. But I just can't, I don't jive with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thanks so much for your time. I could spend another hour talking with you about this, but you've been so gracious with your time so far. The book is Steal the Show, and people can get it where? Anywhere books are sold. If you go to stealtheshow.com, stealtheshow.com, then you will see a whole bunch of really fun freebies, bonus offers. You buy a book, you get a whole bunch of cool stuff, videos, tip sheets, cheat sheets. Go have fun. And if you absolutely hated everything I said, I'm sorry, but I doubt it because you're still here. So you probably had a good time. And ultimately, you want to steal the show. You got to have fun. It's got to be enjoyable to you. It's got to be meaningful, worthwhile. And you got to care deeply about the people you serve. And I care deeply about every single person I serve. I never take it for granted. So stealtheshow.com, pick up a copy of the book, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. And of course, I read the audio myself. Excellent. Michael, thanks so much for the tips and for letting us know how we can learn more about this. And I again, I'm going to be calling this the manifesto of authenticity. I love that. I love that that's the framework here for the whole thing. It's fantastic. So. Thank you. I'm going to go back, listen to that part that you said, and I'm going to write it down because I thought it was great. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Michael, for joining us. Oh, you're welcome. And that's all the time we have. And it's too bad, too. I love talking with Michael Port. So grab the book, Steal the Show. It is at stealtheshow.com. Tons of bonuses there. You can get yourself a copy of that book. I've gotten an advanced copy of that book. It's out today. You want to get this book. It is absolutely phenomenal, great information, great advice for you, not just in public speaking, but in making sure you show up big everywhere. Steal the show in all of the areas of your life is the focus of the book. So grab a copy of that book. If you want to get help in establishing your own authority platform, the place for that is our Scale Mastermind. If you go to our page at frankberea.com, you'll see how you can join our 7 Figures training and our Scale training. That is there for you to jump in, and that's how you get started on the path to joining the Scale Mastermind. All right. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Frank Berea. I've been your host. This has been the 6 to 7 Figure Show. And as always, even in the performance of your life, make it happen.